And everybody wants to run with the top runners, right? I mean, middle packers, back the packers, like it's amazing to be out there on that same course. And I've volunteered at tons of races over the years, including Western States. And it is special to be all together on the same course, but we're in that really tricky spot right now. It was interesting. I was working with a strength coach yesterday, and I've always like self-coached myself for the most part. I've gone to strength classes or gone to gyms and done things, but I treat my own injuries as having a PT background. But then sometimes like maybe it's just because I always feel like I don't have a ton of money. So I'm always like, I just got to figure this out on my own. I'm not going to pay somebody else to do this. But it's interesting now. I'm a little bit more open to like, okay, I need other viewpoints. And it was funny though, because the strength coach was like looking at me and I'm like, yeah, I can't do a proper calf raise on my right foot. He was just like dumbfounded. Like you're able to like do all of these things on the mountain. So like, yeah, I've just found a way. Like I believe in symmetry, but I feel like nobody's perfect. And I've always like tried to find a way around issues that I've had, try to fix and troubleshoot and problem solve injuries and really work hard on that. There's some things where I'm like, okay, I need to find a way to work through that. And I'm like, my glutes and my, basically power movers, my quads have, compensated for this calf. And I think the way that I don't have to run up on my toes for 10K on the track or anything like that. So I found a way to like work with it and, remain, relatively injury free throughout my career, but it's kind of funny. And then he's like, okay, and I'm like, I've never wanted to be like, okay, I need to fix it. And I've also never had an MRI of my body parts just to see, because I'm always like, I don't want to like delve into like, oh no, I've really got something wrong. And there's been a lot of studies that look at that, like people who are walking around pain-free and have the most messed up MRIs on their lumbar spines and cervical spines. And so I think there is something to like, once you get in your head like, oh, I can't do this because I have this, people stop doing it. Circling back to that question is like, again, being adaptable. I mean, there's some people who are, I'm like, okay, you shouldn't be running. I had friends, run bone on osteoarthritic knees or joints. And there's a point where you should be taking care of this, not just willing it to go away.
Right.
But there's something to be said, I think, about not accepting no and finding a way to work with it. Maybe you can't run 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but can you cross train and can you run 3 days a week? And yeah, I think that I've just always had that mindset, whether it's working with patients back when I was a physical therapist, working as a coach. I believe we all have the means to tweak things and to find a way so that we can keep doing what we love. Now, is that going to have to morph and shift? For sure. And so I think I've maintained a healthy attitude about that. But there are times where I just, I get frustrated too, get down on certain aspects in life where I'm like, it's not allowing me to do the things I love in a certain way, but I just have to always like, okay, I've got to figure this out somehow.
Yeah.
And try to get creative.
I love that. That's definitely not what I was expecting you to say. And it's like super useful and tangible advice.
I always am amazed when people say, oh yeah, I just did a perfect race. I'm like, I don't know if there's ever such thing, or is there a perfect body, or is there, there's varying degrees of, some things go less awry than others, but I think in general, it really comes down to like, how willing are you able to tweak things and to be, because again, everyone assumes like, oh, top athletes, they're never in pain. They make it look so easy.
Right.
Everything goes well for them until we see them fail, on a performance and live TV or whatever, because we tend to put certain people on pedestals.
Look at this year's Western States entry list. Like they were going to make Unbreakable 2, but then everyone got broken. So they...
Yeah, I know. It's like instead of Unbreakable, it's Breakable.
It's Breakable.
Yeah, I know. And it's a really bummer because, I feel for all these guys and gals and those that are, supposed to be on that line. Because ideally, you just want the best to be on that starting line. And I want to just say, because I don't believe in luck. Like, I think, sure, there's elements of getting lucky on certain aspects, but I just have a hard time.
I think luck is the rewarding of proper timing and preparation.
Totally. And there's a lot of some of the athletes, and we'll mention names, but they had injuries earlier in the last 12 months. And so sometimes it's not surprising. Sometimes they just got bad luck. And it's hard because you're always trying to push the edges of, you want to stress the body so it can rejuvenate and super compensate.
Right.
And when you're on that edge and, there's a lot of things. I'm not a fan of like these athletes having to race to get into a certain qualifying race, like how they got to go and get a qualifier. It's like Killian and Jim should not have to go and qualify at some race in Italy which again, I have certain problems with that. I think there's a lot of things in the sport that could be done better so that we allow these athletes to be at their best. It's always a hard thing.
Yeah. What are some of those ideas? I'd love to hear them.
Well, I mean, first, I don't think we are going through a lot of growing pains and have been in the sport, but I really think, if an athlete is ready, they shouldn't have to go through all these hoops to compete in an event. I mean, like, take, for instance, marathoning. If somebody's ready to go for a marathon, and if you want to run, you may not get the appearance money, you may not get the bonuses unless you plan that out.
Right.
12 months in advance or under a contract, 6 months in advance, whatever. But if you want to race Boston and you've got some cred to do that,
right, you should be
they'll
able
take
to.
you.
Yeah.
They'll take you.
Right.
Unless,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
They'll take you. Whereas in ultra
you make a call and you're in.
Yeah. And somebody makes a call and you're in. It used to be that way in ultra. And I love that aspect, even though it was nerve wracking as a competitor to be like, oh yeah, 2 months before.
Right.
Rich Hanna is running Western States.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, Rich is running 100, like his first ever 100, world champ, 100K runner, like phenomenal athlete, 217 marathoner, I believe. And yeah, it definitely was a bit of like freaky when you're an athlete and like, okay, 2 months, I find this person right. But it added just so much more spontaneity. And I think the athletes benefited from it. You also didn't have athletes feeling like, okay, I've got to crush this race in February or March.
Right. Or April.
And then turn around and run, and
right.
again,
The
people
curse
like,
of canyons.
It's a gift to be able to, I'm like, these are human bodies that are going to reach their breaking point at some point. And it's hard because a sport like ultra running, it's not like cycling, lower impact. There's a lot of impact going on all the time. And trails obviously are better than maybe roads, but you're always teetering on that. So there's a lot with that. I feel like we shouldn't have to. And it's tricky. Like, how do we move forward through that? Because again, there's only limited spots in these races. And everybody's like, well, they're catering to the top runners. And I don't know the answer completely to that, but it's like, do we have to have a separate race? Lining up on the same start line? Is that the best way to go? I mean, not everybody gets to ride the Tour de France. You got to be at a certain level to but I think in running, we've gotten so used to like, oh yeah, everybody can line up at Boston Marathon, or everybody has the potential to, but in trail running, we can't run a race with 30,000 people or even 10,000 people, comrades.
I mean, Western States is 369 people.
Yeah. Every spot I get it is coveted. So like, do you then have just different races? And because these races have these traditions and everybody wants to run with the top runners, right? I mean, middle packers, back the packers, like it's amazing to be out there on that same course. And I've volunteered at tons of races over the years, including Western States. And it is special to be all together on the same course, but we're in that really tricky spot right now.
If that change were to be made, what does that achieve? Does that unlock more competition? Does that have a focus of let's put the cream of the crop in a couple marquee events? Should every top athlete have the ability to jump into a rate?
Yeah, if an athlete has the chops, has proven themselves, in a race or two, or even one race at least, be like, yeah, let's mix it up. I mean, that's where again, I was saying like a Rich Hanna, he had not done a race of Western States length. There's 100K on roads. So in that case, you're going to elevate the performance of everybody
and the broadcast
and just the excitement of the race. Yeah, the storytelling. And I think, again, I'm not for just saying, oh yeah, somebody might do well.
Right.
You got to have somewhat. And then the returning champs that, okay, this person's going to perform well. Yeah, sure. It's good. I mean, look at the NBA right now, the finals. It's supposedly the least watched NBA final, which is crazy because it's some of the best, tightest, the last game was terrible. But prior to that, it was just watching these two teams, but it's crazy, the least watched because there's no big stars.
Big stars, right?
Yeah. Whereas again, it's a couple of the big stars are out for Western States. How do you keep them? And then I think also athletes would turn up at the starting line in better condition, not injured. There just wouldn't be that pressure again to have to do a race 2 months before, 3 months before.
We've gotten to this point where when people ask what are you racing this year? I'll give 3 races or 2 races, and they're like, that's it. And then you look at these people sharing their race calendar. It's 10 different things. And this is amateurs and professionals. And some of it is okay, people like racing, but some of it is do you want to do this for 10, 20, 30 years? That's an unsustainable way to go about it. And then if the pros are doing it, the amateurs are modeling after the pros, and they're even less likely to hold up from a routine like that. So yeah, I see the upside of pick the spots versus a throw a bunch of eggs against the wall and see who doesn't break kind of vibe, which is like pro marathoners will race twice a year, right? Like not more than that, unless you're Sarah Hall and you're, much more able to recover from races.
No, totally. I mean, I think that's the reality of the sport. Yes, trails are lesser impact, but the distances, the training you have to do, it's just huge.
And the mental toll on it.
Yeah, the mental toll on it, and this like finite. I remember talking to Jim Walmsley, and he was like, I remember several years ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know how long I want to do this," because I was like, "Wow, you're just cranking." And some people only want it; they want to do it for 5-7 years, or even 3 years. Like some people just want to make, I don't know, they just want to burn the candle, burn hot, and like more power to them. Like I can't say as somebody like, well, you got to have longevity. Like not everybody wants to keep running, ultra marathons for as long as I did. But at the same time, my best years were probably in that, 7 to 10 year window, really, when you look at it. Yes, I did stuff on prior and after, but it's like you still have your best years. And like, how do you want to spend those years? And each race you do, and I think it's harder too to show up a race and just run like 80%, even though athletes should. And I think that's tricky too, because if you put yourself into the hopper of a popular race that gets attention, you're not going to want to go 80%. Right. And I think athletes should do a better job of that, of like, okay, this is like a tune-up race, even though I got tune-up races 80K or 50 miles. But, picking those, because I did race a lot, but racing what I did at Western States and racing like a Miwok, Leona Divide 50, those races, they were essentially training runs with race pace, intensity built into it a little bit, fueling strategies, mental component. Like when you start feeling good at 50, 55 miles and 100K, you're ready for 100 miles. And so there's like some confidence there, I think, too. So yeah, it's always a fine balance.